in the New Testament in Mark 9, where there's a man has a son who is possessed by a spirit that causes him to be mute and to fall into fires and into water and to get hurt all the time. And so the man brings the child to the disciples, and the disciples pray, and nothing happens. So Jesus comes on the scene, all right? And Jesus says, hey, what's the deal? What's going on? And so the father says, hey, your disciples couldn't come up with the goods. They didn't help my kid at all. Can you help me? And so Jesus makes a statement in Mark 9, verse 23. He says to the father, he says, if you can believe, all things are possible for those who believe, to him who believes. That's what he said. If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. So if we stopped here, you'd get the idea that Jesus put it back on the man. If you only have enough faith, it would be okay. But look at the next line. Look at verse 24. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. Now, we're not going to read on, but let me just tell you the bottom line. Jesus heals the kid. Totally healed. But I want you to look at this. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. In other words, he says, I believe to a certain point. I'm here, aren't I? Because if he had no faith at all in Jesus, would he have even bothered coming there? He wouldn't have. But he at least showed up. He's present. He's saying, please help me. And he is honest with God and says, I believe, but I've got a connection issue here. I don't have the faith to see this miracle happen. And what does Jesus do? Comes down and meets this man, this father and his son at their point of need and immediately heals them. He doesn't say, oh, well, I'll come back next week when you have more faith. If you just have more faith, I could do this for you. Doesn't do any of that. That man just said, help me. Help my unbelief. And I know there's not a person here that doesn't have faith. You know why? You're here. You wouldn't bother coming to church if you didn't have a certain element, a certain level of faith. Now, it might be the smallest of seeds, but you've got faith. You're here. Let me tell you something. That's all you need. That and a little stick-to-itiveness. That's a word that really is real. Stick-to-itiveness, that just means to just stay persevering, to stay seeking God. And as part of your prayer, if you haven't broken through that struggle that you're going through right now, to say, Lord, I believe, I'm trusting you, I'm doing my best, but help me. Come and meet me at my point of need of my unbelief. And here's what he promises. He will. We have the example from the Scriptures. And Jesus changeth not.